Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
Commander Threx of the Zyra Legion had never known defeat. From the moment she emerged from the warforges of Zyra Prime, her existence had been defined by precision, discipline, and victory. She had led 17 campaigns across 12 star systems. She had crushed rebellions before they could take shape, dismantled civilizations that resisted assimilation, and stood unchallenged against enemies who had once believed themselves invincible. Until now, Karen, 9 burned beneath a fractured sky. The planet had been designated a routine conquest, minimal resistance, strategic value high, estimated subjugation time, 3 cycles. Instead, it had become a graveyard. The ground pulsed with residual energy from weapons too advanced to categorize. Entire sections of terrain had been warped, twisted into unnatural formations as if reality itself had buckled under the strain of the conflict. Metallic debris rained from above, remnants of orbital fleets torn apart in minutes. Threx moved through the devastation with practiced efficiency, though each step sent a sharp jolt through her body. Her armor was failing. Once seamless and alive, it now hung in fractured segments across her form. The bioorganic plating that had bonded to her nervous system flickered weakly, its regenerative capabilities overwhelmed. Purple light, normally steady and strong, now sputtered along the veins of her suit like a dying heartbeat. System status, critical. Neural link, unstable. Structural integrity, 18%. Regeneration, offline. External threat detection, compromised. She ignored the warnings. Pain was irrelevant. Survival was secondary. The mission, always the mission, had been everything. But the mission was gone. The Legion was gone. A distant explosion rippled across the horizon, followed by silence. Not the temporary lull of battle, but something deeper, final. Threx slowed. This was wrong. War was never silent. She reached the crest of a shattered ridge and looked down upon what remained of the battlefield. Nothing moved. No advancing formations. No retreating survivors. No enemy units scanning for stragglers. Only destruction. Her mandibles tightened slightly, a reflex she rarely allowed. This was not defeat in the conventional sense. There had been no decisive moment. No turning point she could identify. The enemy had adapted too quickly, evolved mid-conflict, countering every strategy before it could fully deploy. They had not fought like any known species. They had learned, and then they had erased. A flicker of movement in her peripheral vision snapped her focus. Threx turned sharply, instincts overriding exhaustion. Her hand reached for a weapon that was no longer there. Too slow, a pulse of energy slammed into her from the side. Her body lifted off the ground and crashed into a mass of broken machinery. The impact shattered what remained of her armor's integrity, sending a shockwave through her internal systems. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound, no sensation. Then, pain returned all at once. Her vision struggled to stabilize as warning signals flooded her neural interface. Something warm and thick seeped beneath her, her own blood darker than the ash-covered ground. She forced herself to move. A warrior of Zyra did not remain prone. With immense effort, she pushed herself up, using the jagged remains of fallen war beasts for support. The creature's massive frame, once unstoppable, now lay split open, its core extinguished. Like everything else, her breathing grew shallow. Each inhale felt incomplete, as if her body had forgotten how to sustain itself. Identify a target, she whispered, though no system remained functional enough to respond. There was no enemy in sight, only the aftermath of their presence. That was the most terrifying part. They did not need to stay. They did not need to finish her, because they knew she would not survive. For the first time in her existence, Commander Threx understood something foreign. Not fear, but inevitability. Her mind began to slow, thoughts drifting between clarity and fragmentation. Memories surfaced unbidden. Training chambers, the voice of her superior, the cold efficiency of her first kill. Strength is purpose. Purpose is survival. She had believed that. She had embodied it. And yet here she was, alone, broken, irrelevant. A faint tremor ran through her hand as she lowered herself against the wreckage. Her body was shutting down, systems failing in sequence. There would be no extraction, no recovery, no continuation. Only one choice remained. With deliberate effort, she lifted her arm. The gauntlet, cracked but still partially responsive, flickered as she activated its final function. A small glyph illuminated weakly. Honor's End Protocol. A warrior of Zyra did not die helpless. They chose their end. Her fingers hovered over the control for a moment longer than necessary, not from hesitation, but from recognition. This was the first decision she had ever made that was not dictated by command. A strange stillness settled over her. The battlefield no longer mattered. The enemy no longer mattered. Only this moment. She pressed a glyph. A silent countdown initiated within her neural interface. 10. Her breathing steadied, despite the damage. 9. The pain began to dull, overridden by the protocol. 8. Her body relaxed slightly, tension draining from muscles that had never known rest. 7. The sky above her fractured vision came into focus, dark, torn, yet vast. 6. She wondered, briefly, what existed beyond war. 5. The thought felt incomplete. 4. Irrelevant. 3. This was the end she had earned. 2. She closed her eyes. Let this be my end. 1. Darkness came, and for the first time in her life, there was no fight left to give. Warmth. That was the first sensation, not the artificial heat of a combat suit regulating a battlefield environment, not the burning sting of plasma wounds or atmospheric friction. This warmth was gentle, unearned. Threx's consciousness returned slowly, like something reluctant to exist again. Her mind, trained for immediate activation, struggled to reconcile the absence of urgency. No alarms, no incoming threats, no mission directives flooding her neural pathways. Only quiet and a smell. It slipped into her awareness before her vision fully returned. Rich, layered, unfamiliar, not chemical, not sterile, organic, savory. Her eyes snapped open. Light flooded in, bright, natural, unfiltered. She flinched instinctively, her pupils contracting as her vision struggled to adjust. The sky above her stretched endlessly, a soft gradient of blue unlike anything she had seen on war-torn worlds. For a moment, she did not move. Her last memories surged forward. Karen 9, the battlefield, the countdown. She inhaled sharply. Her body responded. That alone was wrong. She was supposed to be dead. Threx sat abruptly, her instincts roaring back to life. Her muscles tensed, expecting resistance, pain, limitation, but none came. She froze. Her body was intact, not partially restored, not stabilized, healed. She flexed her fingers slowly, watching them respond without delay. No tremors, no damage. Even the deep internal fractures she had felt before, gone. Her breathing steadied, but her mind sharpened. This was not recovery. This was intervention. "What is this?" she muttered, her voice quieter than she remembered. She looked down. Her armor was gone. No Zyra plating. No neural interface. No weapons. Not even the embedded command glyphs beneath her skin. For the first time since her creation, she was unarmed. A flicker of something unfamiliar passed through her chest. Not fear. Not yet, but close. A soft sound broke the silence. Clink. A pause. Then, sizzle. Threx's head snapped toward the source. Her senses recalibrated instantly, scanning for threat vectors, movement patterns, energy signatures. Nothing. Just sound. Rhythmic. Repetitive. Intentional. She rose to her feet in one smooth motion, though internally she was cataloging every inconsistency. The ground beneath her was soft, covered in green organic growth, vegetation, untouched, alive, impossible. She turned slowly, taking in her surroundings. No craters, no debris, no scorched sky. Instead, an open field stretched around her, gently swaying under a light breeze. In the distance, clusters of tall structures, natural, not constructed, reached toward the sky. Trees. She recognized them from archived planetary data. But this was not a battlefield. This was peaceful. Her gaze shifted again, and then she saw it. A structure, small, primitive, constructed from organic materials, wood, stone, a habitation unit, but unlike anything engineered for efficiency or defense. Smoke drifted from its top in a thin, lazy stream, and beside it, a figure, humanoid, facing away from her, alive. Threx's entire body went still. Her instincts surged. Unknown species, unknown capability, unknown threat level. She lowered her center of gravity slightly, preparing for engagement. The figure moved casually, completely unaware of her presence. In its hand, an object. It stirred something inside a shallow metallic container positioned over a control flame. Fire. Open fire. Uncontained. The being leaned slightly forward, focused not on its surroundings, but on the contents of the container. Almost done, it said. The voice was soft, relaxed, unconcerned. Threx's eyes narrowed. No defensive posture. No environmental scanning. No visible weaponry. Either this being was extremely advanced or dangerously unaware. She took a slow step forward. The grass shifted beneath her foot with a soft sound. The figure paused, then turned. Time seemed to slow. Their eyes met. The being was fragile, soft skin, no armor, no visible enhancements. Its frame lacked the density or structure of a combat species, and yet there was no fear in its expression, only mild surprise, followed by something even more confusing. Relief. "Hey," the human said. Human. The words surfaced instantly in her mind from stored knowledge archives. Designation. Earth species. Technologically inconsistent. Socially complex. Not classified as high-priority threat. "You're awake," he continued, as if the situation were entirely normal. "Good. I wasn't sure how long you'd be out." Threx did not respond. Her mind was already dissecting everything. Language, understood. Tone, casual. Body language, non-aggressive. No immediate threat, but that meant nothing. "Identify yourself," she said, her voice sharp despite its softness. The human blinked once, slightly taken aback, but not alarmed. Okay," he said. "Name's Daniel." He gestured lightly toward the structure behind him. "You're here, on Earth." Earth. The word echoed. Threx's gaze shifted past him again, scanning the horizon. No war. No destruction. No legion. "How did I arrive here?" she asked. Daniel shrugged, stirring the contents of the pan again as if multitasking during a first contact scenario was completely reasonable. "You kind of fell out of the sky," he said. "Big flash, loud noise. Then you were just lying there, unconscious." Threx processed that. Her last known action. Self-termination. There should have been nothing left to recover. "And you did not eliminate me," she said, her tone narrowing slightly. Daniel looked at her, confused. "Eliminate you? I am not of your species. I am a soldier, a potential hostile entity." There was a pause. Then, "You looked like you needed help," he said simply. No calculation, no strategic hesitation, just the decision. Threx studied him carefully. This behavior did not align with survival logic. A species that failed to neutralize unknown threats did not endure. And yet, he stood there, alive, calm, unafraid. Her attention shifted again to the container over the fire. "What are you doing?" she asked. Daniel glanced down, then back at her. "Cooking dinner." The words landed strangely. Dinner, not rations, not nutrient intake. Something else. He gave a small, easy smile. "You're just in time, actually." Threx did not move. This entire situation defied every framework she had ever known. She had chosen death. Instead, she stood in a quiet field on an unscarred world, speaking to an unarmed being who was preparing food. "I will observe," she said finally. Daniel nodded, as if that were the most normal response possible. "Fair enough," he said. He turned back to the pan, continuing his work without concern. Threx remained where she was, watching him, waiting, analyzing, for the first time, not for an enemy attack, but for understanding. Threx did not sit immediately. She remained standing at the edge of the small clearing, her posture rigid, her senses stretched to their limits. Every instinct told her this was wrong, unnatural, a constructed illusion, perhaps a psychological containment designed to disarm her. And yet, nothing about it felt artificial. The wind shifted softly through the tall grass, bending it in slow, rhythmic waves. The fire crackled with quiet consistency. The scent from the pan deepened, becoming richer, more complex. Layers of unfamiliar compounds blending in ways her training had never prepared her for. Daniel moved without urgency. That alone disturbed her more than any weapon could. On a battlefield, stillness meant death. Movement meant survival. Every action was calculated, efficient, necessary. But here, he hummed, a low, uneven melody, not structured like a signal, not coded, just sound. "Are you always as quiet?" he asked without turning around. Threx's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are aware of my presence," she said. "Yeah," he replied casually. "You're not exactly subtle when you're analyzing everything like that." She did not deny it. "You remain unguarded," she observed. Daniel shrugged, flipping something in the pan with a practiced motion. "You haven't attacked me. That is not evidence of safety." "Maybe not," he said, "but it's a decent start." Threx stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, each movement controlled, ready to shift into aggression at the smallest sign of threat. But there was none. Up close, the human appeared even more fragile. No hidden armor beneath the fabric, no energy shielding, no embedded weapon systems. Even his back, completely exposed, unacceptable vulnerability. "You assume I will not strike," she said. Daniel glanced at her over his shoulder. "I assume if you wanted to, you would have already." A pause. "Also," he added, "you look more confused and dangerous right now." That was inaccurate. And yet, not entirely. Threx stopped a short distance from him, her gaze shifting to the cooking surface. The contents of the pan moved in controlled chaos. Colors blending, steam rising, oil crackling under heat. "What is its function?" she asked. Daniel blinked. "The pan? The process?" "Oh," he said, nodding. "Cooking. Turning raw ingredients into something better." "Better," she repeated. "Yeah, more flavor. Easier to eat. More enjoyable." Enjoyable. Another unnecessary concept. Food was fuel. Efficiency. Sustenance. Nothing more. "You invest time into this," she said, "without tactical purpose." Daniel smiled slightly. "Not everything needs a tactical purpose." Threx studied him. "That is inefficient." "Probably," he admitted, "still worth it." She did not respond. Instead, her gaze shifted outward again, to the horizon, to the untouched land stretching far beyond the small dwelling. "This world," she said slowly, "it is not under threat." Daniel followed her gaze. "Not right now," he said. "At least not like wherever you came from." Threx processed that. No active war. No immediate conflict. No dominant force enforcing control. "How has your species survived?" she asked. Daniel leaned back slightly against the wooden structure, considering the question. "Same way anyone does, I guess," he said. "We adapt." Adaptation alone does not ensure survival. "No," he agreed, "but it helps when you're not trying to wipe each other out all the time." Threx's eyes flicked back to him. "All the time," she repeated. He gave a small shrug. "We've had our share of wars," he said. "Still do, sometimes, but that's not all we are." That concept didn't align. War was not a phase. War was existence. "Conflict defines progression," she said. "Without it, a species stagnates." Daniel shook his head slightly. "Or maybe conflict just slows everything down," he said. "Depends how you look at it." Threx fell silent. Her entire framework, every doctrine, every principle, was built on the certainty that strength came from struggle, that dominance ensured survival, that peace was temporary, fragile, and ultimately irrelevant. And yet, this human stood before her, unarmed, unafraid, alive. "You should have eliminated me," she said suddenly. Daniel frowned slightly. "Why do you keep saying that?" "I am a trained combatant from an unknown world. My presence here introduces risk." "Yeah," he said. "I figured. And you chose to ignore that risk." "I chose to help someone who looked like they needed it," he corrected. "That is not a rational survival decision." "Maybe not," he said, "but it's a human one." The statement hung in the air. Threx searched for deception. There was none, only a quiet certainty. Daniel turned back to the pan, lowering the heat slightly. "Besides," he added, "if you wanted to destroy me, I don't think I'd be able to stop you anyway." Threx tilted her head slightly. "Correct." "Yeah," he said. "Figured." No fear. No attempt to change the outcome. Just acceptance. It was unsettling. "Then why remain unguarded?" she pressed. Daniel paused for a moment, then looked at her again. "Because not everything has to be a fight," he said. Threx held his gaze. That idea felt incomplete, dangerous, even. And yet, there was something else beneath it. Something she couldn't categorize. The pan gave a final sharp sizzle. Daniel nodded to himself. "All right," he said. "That's done." He reached for a couple of simple plates, placing them on a small wooden table nearby. "Come on," he said, gesturing toward it. "You should eat." Threx didn't move. "You continue to assume cooperation," she said. Daniel gave a small half-smile. "I'm hoping for it." Hope. Another inefficient concept. And yet, she found herself stepping forward. Not because she trusted him. Not because she understood him. But because, for the first time in her existence, there was no immediate reason not to. She approached the table slowly, her movements still precise, still controlled. Daniel placed a plate in front of her, then sat down across from it, completely at ease. Threx looked down at the food. Steam rose gently, carrying that same unfamiliar scent. Warm, inviting, strange. She remained standing for a moment longer. Then, after a brief pause, she sat, not as a warrior, not as a commander, but as something else, something undefined. And across from her, the human simply nodded, as if this quiet, fragile moment was the most natural thing in the universe. The silence between them was not empty. It was steady. Threx sat upright, her posture still precise, though no longer rigid. Across from her, Daniel leaned back slightly in his chair, completely at ease, as if sharing a table with an unknown alien warrior was no more unusual than any other evening. The contrast unsettled her. The plate in front of her continued to release soft waves of heat. Steam curled upward, carrying that same layered scent, complex, organic, unfamiliar in ways her mind struggled to categorize. She stared at it. "You are not consuming," she observed. Daniel glanced down at his own plate, then picked up his utensil. "I was waiting for you," he said. "Waiting is inefficient." "Yeah," he replied lightly, "but it's polite." Polite. Another unnecessary variable. Threx reached for the utensil slowly, her fingers adjusting to its balance. It lacked the precision of combat tools, the optimization of Zyra equipment. It was simple, imperfect, human. She mimicked the motion she had observed earlier, lifting a portion of food. A pause. Then she tasted it. Everything stopped. Her senses, trained for threat detection and battlefield analysis, struggled to process what they encountered. Heat, but not destructive. Flavor, but not uniform. It shifted, expanded, layered sensations building on one another in a way that had no tactical purpose, and yet demanded attention. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "This is altered," she said. Daniel smirked faintly. "That's kind of the point. It is inefficient to invest this level of effort into sustenance." "Probably," he said, "still tastes better." Threx took another bite, then another. Each one confirmed the same anomaly. This was not optimized. It was experience. She lowered the utensil slowly. "This serves no strategic function," she said quieter now. Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Not everything has to." She looked at him. That statement again. Repeated. Consistent. It was not ignorance. It was belief. "My world," she said after a moment, "is defined by efficiency. Every action serves survival. Every resource is optimized. Every decision is calculated. Daniel nodded. Sounds like you don't get a lot of time to just exist. Existence without purpose is waste. Or maybe purpose doesn't always have to be about survival, he said. Threx's gaze sharpened. That is illogical. Is it? He asked. You survive your world. You fought, you won, you kept going. And where did it get you? She didn't answer. The battlefield flashed in her mind. Ash, silence, defeat, termination, she said finally. Daniel didn't respond immediately. He set his utensil down, studying her, not as a threat, not as an enemy, but as something else. Yeah, he said quietly, that tracks. Threx's fingers tightened slightly against the edge of the table. I initiated my own death, she continued. It was the only logical conclusion. Continued function was no longer possible. Daniel nodded slowly. And yet, he said, gesturing lightly around them, here you are. She followed the motion, the field, the sky, the quiet. I should not be, she said. Maybe, he replied. Or maybe something decided you shouldn't end like that. Threx's eyes flicked back to him. Something? Daniel shrugged. Luck. Chance. The universe. I don't know. But you got out. This is not escape, she said. This is displacement. Maybe, he said, but it's also an opportunity. The word lingered. Opportunity. Not survival. Not conquest. Something else. Threx looked down at the plate again. At the food she could not categorize. At the act she could not justify. You do not operate under constant threat, she said. Not like you do, Daniel answered. And yet your species persists. Yeah. How? Daniel leaned back slightly, considering. Not by being the strongest, he said. Not all the time. Anyway, we survive because we work together. We build things. We help each other out. That creates vulnerability. Yeah, he admitted, it does. Then it is flawed. Maybe, he said, but it's also why we're still here. Threx studied him again. No armor, no weapons, no visible defense. And yet, there was something there. Not strength, not dominance, but resilience. A different kind. You should fear me, she said. Daniel met her gaze calmly. Do you want me to? The question caught her off guard. I am capable of violence beyond your ability to counter. I believe you, he said. Then your lack of fear is irrational. Or maybe I just don't think you're here to hurt me, he said. Threx paused. That assumption, it was incorrect, and yet it no longer felt entirely wrong. I was, she said slowly, before what? Before I chose to die. The words settled between them. Daniel didn't interrupt. For my entire existence, she continued, there has only been one directive. Fight, adapt, eliminate, survive. She looked up at the sky again, and now there is nothing. No orders, no enemies, no purpose. The silence pressed in not as a threat, but as something vast and undefined. Daniel followed her gaze. Yeah, he said, that can feel weird at first. At first, she repeated. He smiled slightly. You get used to it. That implies adjustment. Yeah. To what? Daniel thought for a moment. Then, to living without needing everything to be a fight. Threx let that settle. It did not fit. It did not align. And yet, it did not feel impossible. Her gaze dropped back to the table, to the plate, to the simple act of sharing a meal with a being who had every reason to fear her, and chose not to. I do not understand your species, she said. Daniel chuckled softly. Yeah, he said. We don't always understand ourselves either. A pause. Then he gestured toward her plate again. Eat, he added. Food gets cold. Threx hesitated for only a moment. Then she picked up the utensil again. Another bite. Still warm. Still strange. Still unnecessary. And yet, she continued, the sun dipped slightly lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the field. The air cooled just enough to contrast with the warmth of the meal. No alarm sounded. No threats emerged. No war followed. For the first time in her existence, time passed without purpose. and it did not feel like weakness. She leaned back slightly, her body no longer coiled for immediate action. Across from her, Daniel stood, gathering the empty utensils with casual efficiency. "I'll start cleaning up," he said. Threx watched him. "You maintain routine," she observed. "Yeah," he said. "Helps keep things normal." "Normal," she repeated. Another unfamiliar concept. Daniel paused, then glanced back at her. "You're allowed to just be here, you know." Threx held his gaze. "Without function?" "Yeah." "Without purpose?" He smiled faintly. "Or maybe just a different kind of purpose." She said nothing, but she did not reject the idea. As the last light of the day stretched across the horizon, Threx closed her eyes once more. Not to escape, not to end, but to consider. And when she opened them again, there was no battlefield, no legion, no war, only a quiet world.